Hey everybody, it's David, MSOM 601, Problem Solving and Critical Thinking. Module 2 preview. I hope you had a great first week. I'll be spending the next couple of days grading your work. You'll notice I probably already graded some of the discussions because you met the criteria early, and the first week is pretty easy in those areas. So make sure that you check out the grade book, and you'll begin to see my comments. Make sure you click on the grade and you'll see my comments on your submissions and also on your discussion forums. Also, just wanted to reiterate that every time you log into the course, look at the announcements. You'll see that there are several in here already. Many of these you received an email copy of as well, which reminds me to remind you, make sure that you check your CSU email account, because that is where you will see all of these. They won't be coming any other way to you. And if I have a personal thing I want to chat with you one-on-one about, it's going to go to your CSU email account as well. So let's get started with Module 2. Module 2 this week is about analyzing arguments. And this is really a foundational part of critical thinking, and which is why it happens very early in the text. And your textbook readings this week, Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, talks about clarifying ideas and concepts. Chapter 5 is about analyzing arguments and diagramming decisions. One of the things that for me is really important, I'm more of a visual learner, direction giver, if you will. And for some of you, you can hear things and just immediately go at it. I need to, when I put together and I want to think critically about something or I want to solve a problem, I like to draw diagrams, and this gets pretty technical in your text this week, but I like to do decision trees and those types of things that will help me visualize what happens. And I think when I do that, I have a much greater chance of not missing something. And so the textbook readings this week and every week, quite frankly, in this course, very important. And then you're going to see the lectures for Chapter 4. You'll see the videos, the sketch note videos. Same thing for Chapter 5. Make sure, hear me on this, make sure that you read the Module 2 problem solving lecture. It's only about 3 or 4 slides, but it's very important for you to take a look at as you begin to do the application this week, okay? And so this week you have 3 things to do. You have a discussion. And the discussion this week is on context and purpose. And we talk about how can context and purpose affect the quality of an interpretation. And think about it this way. What we're really looking for when we apply context and purpose is we're looking for clarity, right? I mean, so when you communicate with your children, you communicate with your boss, you communicate with your committee at church, you communicate with other people, what you're really looking for is clarity. And so the contextual element of this, the purpose of what you're saying, plays a big role into the clarity that's there. And so when you do your research this week to provide your CSU online library sources for your discussion, you may type in context and purpose and not find a lot. But if you put communication clarity and just clarity in general, you're going to expand the universe of the sources you'll be able to find here. So make sure that you think about these things from a clarity perspective, okay? And then the assignment this week talks about vagueness and ambiguity. Those are 2 totally different things. Even though they do have a degree of similarity, too often people treat them interchangeably. And they are very different. The text does a good job of defining each one of those. So I would encourage you, as you write your paper this week, make sure that before you jump too far into this, you provide a definition of vagueness, a definition of ambiguity, and compare and contrast the 2, okay? So let's think about this for a second. If you think about clarity as kind of the whole idea here in this lesson, and the reason that this is one of those things that we're talking about so early. Let's think about this from a political perspective, all right? Regardless of which side of the political spectrum you are on, politicians in general do not like to provide clarity. And the reason they don't, in my view, is because vagueness and ambiguity play well for them. If you have someone who is a Republican by design, or someone who is a Democrat by design, they are going to have a certain lens through which they look at topics. And so a politician can say something, and then that person can make up in their own mind what that person is saying based upon their proclivity of what they're saying. If the politician was too specific, then it would be hard for them, hard for the individual to justify that position. So a politician can say, you know, I'm for fair taxes, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, a person on one side of the fence could say, well, that means they are for taxing people with more money at a higher rate. And for the people on the other side of the fence could say, well, that means they are for a flat tax. It means tax everybody at the same amount. Well, think about it. The politician didn't say, they weren't clear in what they said. They just said they're for fair taxes. That's very vague, very ambiguous, because the definition of fair is different for people. So the value that they place on clarity is not very high. But on the other side of the fence, if you are leading an organization, you're leading a committee, you're leading your family, you need to be very clear about what you ask those people to do, or you've just wasted the time of your team, you've wasted the time of the committee, and your children are sitting there going, wow, mom or dad, they really don't know what they're saying because I don't understand. And then they get in trouble because they didn't meet your expectation, when in fact you weren't clear to start with, okay? And so make sure that you focus on those things as we go forward, all right? And then the application this week for the problem-solving cumulative exercise is about stop and think. Stop and think. How often have you started to solve a problem and then realized that the problem probably wasn't that big a deal to start with? So if you're a leader of an organization and you have that same type of thought process where you just immediately react, respond to something without really giving it the proper thought process, you have just wasted the time of your organization. You've moved them off a critical task onto this task, and perhaps just lost money, wasted time, wasted energy and effort. Or on the other side, if you didn't stop and think about whether or not it was an issue, perhaps it was an issue and you treated it like it wasn't. So you missed an opportunity and a competitor comes in and steals X, Y, and Z. And so the first step in this problem-solving process that I want you to take a look at as you are working on your problem-solving proposal is stop and think. And you're going to answer these questions as well as others. Well, what am I trying to accomplish? Be very, very clear here. Don't be vague or ambiguous, all right? What is the organizational, or if it's an individual piece, the individual context? What that means is, how does this particular issue, opportunity, or whatever play into the organization? Will it have a huge impact? Is it something that's going to move the needle in a big way? Or is it something that may be marginal at best? And then, is the situation urgent? Do I need to move the organization, my family, this committee, whatever the situation is, do I need to move them immediately against this particular problem? Or is it something that either can wait or is too early, or something that I need to put in a file folder somewhere just to address perhaps at a later time? All right? So make sure that you take a look at that this week. This lesson is really one of the most important ones in problem solving and in critical thinking, because it deals with making sure that you are very, very clear. You'll note that on the papers or my paper comments, I want to make sure that you're clear in the issues, clear in the opportunities, and make sure that all of these things are key to moving forward. All right? Hope this helps. Have a great week. If you need me, reach out. I'm here.